I want to go through the main takeaways of what DevConnect means for the region. Give me a summary of DevConnect in one sentence.
Energizing and tiring.
The first one that I'd like to discuss with you is the perception people has around the world on Latin America. It feels like this is the moment.
I'm curious, what did you hear? Because you guys hosted a fintech and payments forum. What was your takes on fintechs and institutions meeting crypto?
I'm super bullish, extremely bullish on what we're doing. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Frontera. I'm Mav, co-founder and CEO of Bando and Espacio Crypto. I'm with my great friend Kush, founder of Odisea Labs. And today we're going to do a recap of what happened in DevConnect in Buenos Aires. This is the third time DevConnect comes to Latin America. The first one was Cancun in 2017. The second one was Colombia in 2022. Yeah, 2022. And now was Argentina. 2025. So there were a lot of things happening. We did a lot of events. We participated in the Uniswap Cup. And I want to go through the main takeaways of what DevConnect means for the region, also some of the main topics that we discussed there, and also general takes. Kush, how's everything, my friend? Give me a summary of DevConnect in one sentence.
Energizing and tiring. Both simultaneously.
I think that we are getting to a mature age as an industry and as a crew. Maybe when we were, I don't know, 22, you could go to a party, then a dinner, then another party, wake up at 6. And right now, I just want to have a good hotel room, enough time to do my morning routine, have a good coffee, and just make things happen. I don't know, maybe we're more focused now.
Yeah, I think it was a lot of hopping around, right? There were some nights where you'd have 8 dinners to go to, followed by or preceded by, a few different conference events and so on. And I think for us, I feel the morning routine is essential, right? So I always sort of made sure, and luckily, with the team, everyone has wearables, so we were always comparing sleep scores, and mine was generally fairly consistent throughout. Some people are very volatile. They wouldn't sleep for a night and they'd sleep 10 hours. And, I think it's kind of choose your own adventure. Hats off to the people that just 3-4 hours of sleep every night for 10 days. I see them at the end and they're just zombies, don't talk to me. I don't want to see anybody. I'd rather the constant energy curve. How did you approach things?
I generally in crypto conferences, I do not drink because I think it's I don't like it. But we were in Argentina and I love wine. So I generally only drink either beer or wine. And wine was so good. And also, dinner in Argentina is so late and so heavy that it basically disrupts your whole body. So, how I manage it, I think that I was energized at a good level through the whole conference. And the main thing is that there is this moment where you are intellectually energized but physically tired. So that's what I understand from what you're saying about being energized and tiring at the same time. And I think that that's a good balance because the mind controls everything. And if you have a internal fire in your consciousness, you can make anything with your body. And obviously, the bad thing is that if you drink too much, obviously, it's a horrible mistake. And I'm glad I didn't do that. And dude, let's start recapping the main things that happened in DevConnect. The first thing is I just want to shout out the team at Uniswap for the Uniswap Cup. I mean, I think it was one of the best events I've ever been in the crypto world. And I'm really happy for that because it was a different event. There were a lot of, they had an asado, people playing football. And for me, it was I'm really proud that Espacio Crypto and Odisea were there because basically the best teams in the industry were there. The Abbott teams, Morpho, CK Sync, Uniswap, I don't remember a lot more, but they were basically 32 teams and all were top level, and we were part of it. How did you enjoy the Uniswap Cup?
I thought it was super fun, man. I didn't play. Everybody's like, "Why aren't you playing?" But we had the team play, and then a couple other collaborators who we were closely with joined the team. For us, it was actually it was super fun, man. Like we made it to octavos. I don't know, basically the playoffs, and it was great. Really, the team loved it. I know everybody was very excited. The games were very intense as well. So, and props to the ZK Sync team too for taking it home. I mean, they had incredible players. The Across team had, an ex PSG player on their squad as well. So, people were taking this thing very, very seriously. You actually played. How was it playing? How did you balance because I feel like we're probably both very competitive people. So how did you balance the competition and also the friendly nature of the game?
Well, I love playing football. And one of the main things about playing sports is that one thing that I really like is that I love to win and I love to play nice. And I have this theory. Actually, I read it. I think that I've mentioned it before. I have this. I read this. I don't remember if it was Mark Andreessen or Chris Dixon in this essay that they said that there is a misconception that people in the technology industry, in order to be successful, you need to be like an asshole, and that's not true. Absolutely, I don't believe that. And I love this motto of play nice but win. So that's the way that I try to do it. And the thing is that when you do not play nice, it's you're being either aggressive with the other person, like with the other with the opponent team. And what I like to do is I like to be really aggressive with my own like demand or behavior, internal aggressiveness instead of external aggressiveness, and that's like putting everything that you have in the field. And we did that. Actually, we had a really nice second game. And I love football. I love sports, and I think that it's a matter of this industry. I tweeted this like I love the Uniswap Cup because it really encapsulated a lot of what this industry is. We are really competitive. We all want to win, and whenever someone else's win, well, I'm happy for them afterwards. You know, I was really happy for the CK Sync team. Alfonso is a really good friend. Actually, on Monday we had a dinner with a fund, and they were flexing the trophy through all the dinner, and it was really fun. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I really like to now discuss that part of dinners because I think that you and I are all the time hopping around to different events. We threw and two events, well, three events with Monad. The main Monad event, we threw it with them. Also, we did Meet Monad, that was like a more a community event. We did the second superconductor party with Bridge and Privy that was super fun, and then we did a VIP dinner with Monad. And also through all the week, I was at different dinners with VCs, with other builders, with mostly people in the industry. And I think that the conversations happening in those private dinners are completely different from the conversations happening in the main stage and in the main venue. So I'd love to chat about the main insights that you got from this type of dinners. And the first one that I'd like to discuss with you is the perception people has around the world on Latin America. It feels like this is the moment. And this is not only the moment in a hypey way, but in an adoption and demand way. So I have a couple of insights about that, and I'd love to hear your takes on this specific thing.
Yeah. So I gave a talk at DoonCon titled Crypto in the Age of Latin American Accelerationism. And the premise of the talk is that we have governance and economic challenges in the region, where three-quarters of the people don't believe in their democracies, hyperinflationary economies, such as the case in Argentina, Venezuela. We have really high indices of poverty, a lot of financial exclusion, where 50% of the population doesn't have access to appropriate banking, and so on. And based on that, the question is like, oh, if only there was a technology that could address, these governance and sort of economic issues in the region. And I think it was really cool to sort of be able to recap a lot of that synthesis and a lot of what we talk about, and be able to share it with folks at DoonCon. I fundamentally, I think the narrative right now, it's people saying like, okay, great, like I want to win here. I want my product to be adopted here. I want my blockchain to win. I do wonder sometimes who are the people that do really well. And in fact, I think this kind of interesting like side quest by way of a conversation is like, who do we feel is doing really well in the region, right? Like Base has their country leads, so they have people in Mexico, Brazil, and Argentina. Uniswap has the same, and they have someone in Colombia as well. Base also has someone that covers like the rest of Latin America too. So we have this like, and then there are other teams that are like just hiring the head of LatAm. So, I think the other interesting conversation is like, who did we feel really showed up? ZK Sync has a really big presence here, mainly focused on institutions and so on. We mentioned Dalcito, but they have, quite a few people on their team there. But generally, like the interest is, and by the way, there's a lot of interest at the government level too, right? So I think for people looking to drive sort of large scale transformation of society through their adoption of technology, I think is really exciting for people that are looking to target like large financial institutions or governance institutions and so on, to, let's say, emit digital identities or to unlock better payment systems across banking and finance and so on, right? So I think we're seeing both like the underlying conditions that are really flourishing and ready to go, like the demand side by way of users, then also the demand from institutions, and then a lot of blockchains and teams showing up with a lot of force, right? I'm curious for your answer to that question. Also, who do you think is doing an amazing job in the region and like has rolled out a really effective strategy? Because I think that's like there's a lot of insights, and I think that's largely a lot of the center for these types of conversations too.
Yeah, I think that there are several ways to approach this question. The first one, and I want to show this, one of a really cool essay that we wrote at Frontera. We're producing the best content in the region, and we published this on October 10th, and it was called "When Our Messiah Was Only a Dream." So what we mean here is, um, there was a time when we were in the age of dreams about this technology is really transformative for Latin America and emerging markets, and now it's a reality, and we need to deliver. So, in this point, we are in a moment where your question is who is having great execution in the region, and I think that some of the best people executing are, I think that Bridge and Stripe and Privy are doing an amazing job. They did a they have this approach of doing like the pipes for a lot of the startups that are growing a lot in Latin America. Everyone uses Bridge. Everyone uses, or a lot of people use Privy. So they did a really great job. Uh, uh, so like kudos to them. Also, I think I would say that instead of global players, I see a lot of local ambitious founders delivering things that are really, really, really inspiring. El Dorado, for example, they are doing a great job expanding in the region. Also, Taquenos with Lucas, they just raised a round, and I was at their offices, and just it feels really energizing. And I think that I really believe this could sound kind of polemic, but I think that we are in a LatAm bubble, and that's a good thing. Bubbles are a good thing, because what are bubbles? Basically, a bubble is an overinflated expectation, and there are two ways in which bubbles could go. Either reality matches that expectation, or reality just deviates from the expectation, and basically everything goes to zero. But the thing is that when there's a lot of expectation, it attracts a lot of talent and it attracts a lot of investment. That has happened in the transistors, happened in the internet, happened in Bitcoin, happened in the Apollo program. It happened for a long time. And now, why I believe this is a good thing is because a lot of similar companies are getting funded, and a lot of really exciting companies are getting funded. That was not possible before, because in the region we don't have a mature crypto VC ecosystem. Like the level of builders and the traction builders have over is like they are far beyond the capacity and deployment ability of local VCs. So we need to bring international VCs to cover that gap. So that's really exciting. A lot of these companies are going to fail because that's the name of the game. That's absolutely natural. But it's really exciting to see. And some of them will endure. One of the hypotheses that I have for next year is that I think that there's going to be a lot of, at least a couple of important acquisitions. Maybe Stripe acquiring a team in Latin America, a global blockchain acquiring a team in Latin America. So that's a really good sign of making progress. So I would tap ourselves in the back, and I think who's doing a great job. Basically, founders going through the pain of being contrarian on this in this industry, on this region, and it feels like a DevCon felt like a, I don't know, we won a match and we still need to compete for the tournament. I rather focus on these things than different networks, because I think that strategies can change really fast. Maybe now next year is India, so everybody will be looking at India and what will happen. People, absolutely, some companies are gonna abandon the region, and I think that we're already starting to see that. And that's then again the name of
Do
the
you
game.
feel do you feel that people are, because I think there was this concern sometimes, even when like DevCons are chosen, is like we're gonna drive a lot of energy to a specific region, then we want to make sure that things stick around. Do you feel people are leaving the region yet, or do you feel it's like, who do you reference to as you, or what are you seeing people sort of stepping away from the region already?
Well, for example, there are different networks that had people deployed in the region, and now they don't. And that's a way of abandoning the region. And I think that's okay. And it's just, I think that it's kind of stupid when people take that personally, because at the end, they are all businesses trying to make money and impact. And if they see that something's not working, they would be irresponsible not to adjust. One thing that I
Yeah.
think it's really positive is that this country manager, country lead position across the region, Base have it, Uniswap has it. Also, Solana is doing something with the super teams activating at last. I think that a lot of other companies will do. But then again, I think that that's a bubble. And then again, it's a good thing, because not all of these people that are being hired for these positions, it's a natural thing that they won't be qualified to do the job. Maybe they won't deliver results and they will get fired. And some of them will stay in those companies for years doing a lot of impact. So I'm just bracing ourselves, because I think it'll be too idealistic to think, I don't know, we made it. We're everyone that's a country manager will expand the market, and we're all gonna win. Yeah, in the long term, we're all gonna win. But I really believe that we are in a LatAm bubble in a good way, not in a bad way.
We'll see how this stuff pans out, right? I do feel like we'll eventually, what will end up making a lot of sense will be kind of large scale adoption, right, of these protocols, because these little like one-off engagements or small, like, I think you have to be really, really committed for you to reap the benefits, right? Because I think it's, no one will really be paying attention, then it'll just like massively take off. Again, I still feel like we're so far behind when it comes to large scale adoption of the tech. And we're seeing early inklings. Like I think World again is doing some amazing stuff, and others in the space too. But I think especially if my thesis is like the next 12 months, likely the markets will be a little bit down, and that's when the low tide reveals where everybody's true intentions lie.
Do you think that we're in a LatAm bubble?
I think we're in a everything bubble right now. And so like by virtue of that, I think crypto in Latin America is probably really exciting, or much more so than it will be when the bubble no longer is here, right? And so I think we're seeing a lot of the bubble like starting to unwind, to be honest. And again, I think the things will look different in about 12 months time. And I think the cool thing is like we'll still be here with the same sort of LatAm conviction, and we'll see who's still around with us.
Yeah. Well, another thing that I'd like to discuss is that this mismatch between what we see at dinners and what happens in the main stages, I also see a big mismatch that a lot of people maybe understand it who are deeply in the industry, but something that I'm starting to see that it's really relevant specifically in the region is the decoupling of crypto as an asset and crypto as a network. I've been doing a lot of work with fintechs, and they don't care and they don't know the difference between Cardano, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. And I put Cardano there to make the example even more ridiculous. So something that I think that it's gonna happen in the next 12 months is that companies, projects, and use cases that are more focused on the network element of the technology and not the asset element of the industry are going to be better positioned in the next months. Who should be these people? Someone like Dollar App, someone like Nubank investing in a lot in crypto. But when we think about blockchains speculating on specific assets, I'm not really bullish about that. And I think that this element of network and asset, I think that people in the US are the people that have it more ingrained because they really believe it's the same thing, or they try to push both narratives. And I think that's not the way, or that's not where adoption will come from, and that's not where real businesses will come from. I know that that might be a polemic take, but it's just the reality that I see.
I think I think it depends how you define network and asset in a way, because I feel ultimately it's about like the utility, right? And what these different distributed systems sort of bring to people. As you say, people are largely, especially sort of C-suite decision makers at large institutions, whether they be governments or again financial institutions and even retail users, right? Everybody across the spectrum, largely, unless they're ideologically really aligned with liberalism and a lot of the libertarian values of, say, Bitcoin. Generally, the premise is like, I just want access to the utility, right? I think which by virtue of that is like the underlying asset, like in the case of, say, Tether. I don't think it's why Tron has really taken off, right? Everybody's like, why is Tron so good? Why is Tron so good? Because it was cheap, and it's propagated across all of the cuevas, and it's easy to sort of get in and out of pesos or your local currency and USDT on Tron. So I think it's ultimately about the utility and way less about what specific chain it is and whether it's USDC or USDT or another stable coin, of which now there are dozens. It's rather like, does this thing help me save? Does it help me gain access to loans or yield? So I think that's really where this entire industry is going. And like, especially as you sit down and talk with a lot of these fintechs, they're like, I just want yield on my thing, or I just want a loan, or I just want my users to like send and receive dollars, right? Without having like a strong preference for where specifically this settles.
Yeah, thinking about assets and networks, I was thinking about this on my flight home, and I wrote a little, I don't know, after take of DevConnect, and I'm gonna post it I think today in Twitter. And the thing is, just to expand my analogy, I have two examples or three parallels of assets and networks in similar industries in the past. The first one is the transistor industry, and the second one is the oil industry. The asset in the transistor industry was literally transistors. and those had they were really volatile by nature when they started, because basically the Apollo program was willing to pay anything that saved them weight, so they could be overpriced. And the network, I think it has the computing power. And with Moore's law, the network of the transistor only kept growing, while the price of the transistor had a huge volatility until now that basically compute is the basic unit of compute is almost free. When you aggregate a lot of compute, it's super expensive, obviously, but just to make that that parallelism. And it's crazy to think that this stupid wearable has more computing power than the rocket that took us to the moon. I don't know, it's just crazy to think that. The second example is oil. Oil is really a volatile asset, but the network of oil production has a fascinating history. Oil exploration happened before the internal combustion engine, which is crazy to think. So people were literally carrying up mules and horses to get to a random place in the jungle and try to detect oil. And when you think the price of oil, also when it started in the 1800s, went from $8 to like $2 to $20. So assets are always volatile. So when I think about it in crypto, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. We have volatile assets and really steady and growing networks. And the thing is that I don't know what you think about this, because I don't know if it's too obvious and I'm just stating an obvious thing, or it's an elephant in the room. What do you think? Because for me, when I go to this conference, I think that people do not see that, but I don't know if I'm just saying something that it's obvious for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like right now we're definitely in the era where we're like carrying mules, inputting RPCs into your MetaMask wallet is the
Yeah,
equivalent of like taking a mule to the desert and trying to find oil.
literally.
Um, and I think having the foresight of saying like this asset's going to be incredibly important, and like all of the computing industry is basically going to change as a consequence of this technology, and distributed systems are going to win because they're much more effective and efficient and safe and so on. Like that's a conviction that ultimately ends up being contrarian and winning in the long run, right? So I think the analogy makes a lot of sense for sure. I'm curious, like, what did you hear? Because you guys hosted a fintech and payments forum. Like, what was your takes on fintechs and institutions like meeting crypto? I know it's something that we've been discussing a lot. Like, what was the general sentiment and takeaway there?
Well, I think that everybody's really excited about stablecoins. And talking to the CEOs and CTOs of these companies, they are really excited to explore this type of solutions. And I think that there are two categories or two camps in fintech. There are the Web 3.0 companies. Those are companies that are natively on chain by some sort of element in their infrastructure. This could be crypto neobanks, this could be FX providers, this could be P2P markets, this could be basically anything. And they have the same thing in Web 2 or FinTech 2.0, like neobanks, FX, and a lot of these companies. The thing is that the more I think about it, who do you think is going to win? Native Web3 companies or FinTech 3.0 companies, or FinTech 2.0 companies implementing crypto solutions? The best thing that FinTech 2.0 companies have are two things: regulation and 4 billion users. That's the number of users using FinTech today. And Crypto 3.0 or FinTech 3.0, what do they have? Technology, and they can be really nimble. Teams of 20 people are making volumes similar to what teams of 100 people do in FinTech 2.0. But they don't have the clear regulation, and they still don't have the user base. So I think that in the middle, there's a really interesting play, like a really interesting game to play, because it's basically a balance. And today, it's it would be naive to think that fintech 2.0 companies are not going to react. And we're seeing that Nubank is the best example. They are growing a lot their deployment in crypto. The problem is that not everyone is doing so. And they either open their eyes or they are going to be outcompeted. So that's a main topic that I see that's happening in the discussion. And also, one of the main things is, for example, if you're Nubank and you don't want to launch your own chain, that maybe I assume they'll do eventually, who should you partner with? Base, Solana, Monad, Stellar? What are the differences? I mean, you go to the popcorn aisle in the supermarket, and which popcorn do you choose? I think that it's a matter, it's a real thing to understand that the level of differentiation of these chains and protocols is getting close to zero. So it's really interesting to see how these things are going to pan out when you see that competition is crazy and differentiation level is not that big. What do you think on this convergence between fintech and
Yeah.
crypto?
Yeah, I just saw Jing Wang, who's the CEO of OP Labs. OP Labs powers like 15% of all blockchain transactions across Base, Unichain, WorldCoin, Sonium, etc. And she was talking about effectively this commoditization to some extent. At least that's the sort of extrapolation that I would make on block space is being commoditized, and these folks don't necessarily like have a core prerequisite. And talking about Monad, there was some interesting discourse around the how many people, because you could only buy Mon tokens if you were a user of Coinbase, right? So either you signed up to be a Coinbase user, or you are already a Coinbase user. And the interesting thing there was like how many people that are Coinbase users know what Monad is, know the importance of a parallelized EVM, and therefore like its impact and relevance on the market, right? And we saw like even the way the Monad sale filled up, it was very slow, and obviously like towards the end it sort of filled out. But I think to some extent a lot of people were looking at that and saying like, well, what's the appetite for a new EVM? And in reality, like Monad brings some really great technical innovations. I have a bunch of friends that are at Monad as well. But I think the premise is like, and it goes back to what we were saying originally, is like, if you are Banco Santander or if you are Nubank, like how much do you care? Versus all you want is like for people to send money, for people to swap, for people to stake yield and get access to crypto without having to worry about the sort of intricacies of everything that happens on the back end. So I know this is like, in fact, I feel like this thesis has been something that we've like developed over the course of a lot of these conversations as well. Yeah, it's super like really exciting, I think, as we, and I think I mentioned to you this conversation I had with this big like centralized exchange here in the region, and they said like, hey, what chain should I deploy like my stable coin on? And I was like, that is such a silly question for you to ask me, because you don't really care. And in fact, the fact that you have to ask, this now implies you're fragmenting your liquidity. And if you deploy it on chain A, well, maybe chain B actually has the best lending rates, and chain C maybe has like the best NFTs, and chain D has the cheapest transfers, right? So it's kind of like this fragmentation of this entire ecosystem. I think is something that a lot of trad folks come and they're like, why are there 20 chains?
And
Yeah,
they're right. They're absolutely
totally,
right.
absolutely. Yeah.
Dude, I'm going to close saying this. I'm super bullish, extremely bullish on what we're doing. This is like Snoop Dogg saying, I want to thank me, but I want to expand on my argument. There's this history of Spanish and European conquerors going through Southeast Asia and basically winning everywhere. And there was this little town and this little village in Southeast Asia where they could never penetrate it. And the thing is that this tribe won because they had local insight on the ecosystem literally and understood their opponent's technology. So what they did is that they brought the attackers to a specific bay that it looked like big vessels could land and could shore in that bay. But the reality is that there was this point where there was like a 500 meters shore where it looked like it was really deep, but it wasn't that deep. So basically, all of the opponent ships were sinked, or they didn't sink, but they couldn't move. So because of this specific thing, they were able to defeat the people attacking them, and they even made this huge army that was infinitely that had better technology retrieve and go home. And that example is just it. It's really a war example and everything, and we don't like war and we don't like to be that aggressive. But the thing is that local intel will win, because if I go with a big fintech company and they tell me which blockchain should I deploy on, what should I say? And we have the real knowledge. And the thing is, my advice will be wherever you can make a better business. And today, the differentiation of that is really small. So it's going to be a really exciting era. A lot of companies will come on chain and will enable that. And dude, it was a great week. Great to catch around different countries. Next year, we're going to do a lot of things in Mexico. It's going to be exciting. You need to come to the World Cup. That's going to be around the Bitso stablecoin conference. Maybe we'll see each other in November, Cannes, I don't know. So final takes from DevConnect. Kush.
Yeah, I feel like one other piece that was really exciting was we hosted this ETHAC demo day. We had 20 really, really crack teams come and present what they're working on, both Ethereum and crypto-based founders and AI founders, a few at the intersection. And one thing that I want to recognize is the Ethereum posturing around doing really well and winning. And they've restructured a lot of their teams. They're sitting down with a lot of like large institutions, and Bhutan is now running their digital identity systems on chain. And I think Ethereum's like really rising now to the challenge. Lean Ethereum, which is a new way of verifying transactions on Ethereum, I think is going to do really well. So it was cool to see Ethereum like take the acceleration of Ethereum effectively and seriously, and so excited to see them win. And always a pleasure to hang out with you and the Espacio Crypto Bando team, and excited to keep crushing it, man.
Yeah, amazing. Really excited, man. Congrats on everything that you did and Odisea executed during DevConnect. Right now we're at an all-time high in Frontera subs. The newsletter grew more than 10x this year. So we're gonna share some numbers next episode. But thank you everyone that is listening to Frontera, reading our essays. And thank you, man. See you next week. And let's keep going. Thank you.
Peace.
And recording.